Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 3 in our Midnight Mission series, and in this video we're going to finish the background and we're going to start underpainting the mission. And underpainting means that we're going to put the first layer of paint on it. If you are following along traditionally, check out part 1 in this series for a list of all the paint and the canvas materials and the brushes that I use. We're going to be using Infinite Painter for Android for this lesson, and we're going to start out by using a little bit of cadmium yellow light mixed with white, and we're just working on the background a little bit more. Most of this is going to be covered up probably, but I just wanted to get some of the highlight color down. And if you've noticed, I've done this background several times, and that's just kind of the way it is with painting. You put a layer down and you decide that you need to add something else to it, so you just go back over it again, and that's kind of the way it works, at least with the way I paint. So here I want to go ahead and add some brush to the background. And I'm using probably a mixture of Hooker's green with dioxazine purple and some white acrylic gesso in there. And this will make a sort of a light pale green color. And we want to just use our Angelo brush and make sort of rounded, jagged edges, and we want them to be kind of like cotton balls, sort of fluffy looking, because we're trying to give an impression of distant brush in the background. And you can look at your photo reference to see kind of where the dark and light patches are. And even though that's a daylight photo, you can still use it. Just look at the light and the dark patches on it. And then I'm adding a little bit of purple to create some shadows under the bushes, and also pockets of dark and light, and this just gives it the impression of a brush and old trees, bushes, kind of some grass, rocks. We're not looking for any big detail right now because this is going to be in the back, and most likely it will probably be covered up for the most part. But like I mentioned in a previous video, you want to build a world, so you go ahead and you put in what needs to be put in to make a complete world. Here I'm adding a little bit of some shadows to the canyons, and you want to add the shadows opposite from where the light rays would hit on the edges. So just kind of imagine the light rays coming out of your moon and how it would hit on the edges of your canyons there, and which parts would fall in shadow. And you can kind of use your photo reference for that too, but just make sure that it's in keeping with your light source and your picture. So you might have to change the shadows just a little bit. And I'm using the Pollock brush a little bit because it's rough and gives it kind of a grainy look. And then I'm sort of smudging a little bit of that over the white. In the background, we don't want it to look too bright because this isn't a full moon. This is just a crescent moon, so we kind of want to mute our colors and gray them out just a little bit. So yet again, I'm going back over the background, and I'm also trying to keep a sort of soft edge from the background where it's fixing to meet the middle ground and the foreground. And then you can go ahead and take your Angelo brush, a Leo brush, and if you're following along traditionally, use your number 6 flat or your number 8 filbert, and take a mixture of burnt umber and just sort of add it to the middle ground and the foreground. And then we want to throw in some dioxazine purple and mix it kind of with the burnt umber. Throw in a little bit of white. We want to gray it a little bit. And we're just kind of making rough strokes here because we're just putting in the underpainting for the dirt that's going to be in the middle ground and the foreground. So just go ahead and kind of mix that together. I'm throwing a little bit of purple over the white in the back, trying to smooth the transition between the background and the foreground a little bit. The foreground is going to be darker because the mission's going to be there, so things are kind of going to be in shadow here. But we can add a little bit of light to the ground, and you can add a little bit of dioxazine purple with white, and that makes kind of a highlight color. Again, we're still making short, choppy strokes because we want to give the idea of dirt, sort of. So we want the ground to be kind of uneven because this is going to be an old mission kind of out in the desert. And then I want to go ahead and start building the mission part. So Infinite Painter has a guide for perspective, and so you line up your vanishing point, which are the white dots, and you figure out exactly how high you want to make your building, and then you trace the line that leads to your white dot, which will be the vanishing point, and it's on your horizon line. The horizon line is at the foot of the mountains in this picture. And you line up all the lines on the right side of your building, and they're going to go back to the vanishing point on the right side of the screen. We're going to put the right side of the building in perspective. So you want to go ahead, and I just picked a light orange for this, but you can use a light chalk color for this, or you can use white, fine charcoal, but it probably won't show up real good. If you're following along traditionally, just any kind of light color that you will be able to cover up easy, because you don't want the lines to show once you start painting. So I'm working on the top of the mission here, making the little stair steps that come down off of the dome of the mission, and making the edges here, just kind of sketching that in. The missions have curving edges, little stair step look. And then I went ahead and chose the symmetry tool just to make sure that I could get the sides looking even. And you know, if you're doing this traditionally, you just have to look at it and draw it in, because you don't have a symmetry tool if you're doing this traditionally. But it is nice, and this is one of the advantages of digital painting, that you can actually use a symmetry tool. And so anyway, I'm just going ahead and making this sketch and sort of refining it a little bit, and making the edge a little bit thicker on the right side. The front part of the mission is going to be mostly not much perspective, so we're just going to go ahead and make it look thick on the right side, but it won't be in big perspective, so that we don't have to use a vanishing point line or anything like that. Just kind of show the edges a little bit thicker. And I'm drawing the hole that will be for the bell tower right here. And it's an oval shape. They're usually in oval shapes in these missions. And just kind of working on defining the edges of it again. And just go ahead and draw this in with chalk. Make sure that it's not a permanent thing, because you want to be able to erase. See, I've erased the guidelines that I've already put in, and so you want to be able to erase your guidelines and just kind of have this faint outline here. And digitally, just use a color that you can cover up easy. So this orange will work because it's kind of like the Adobe mixture color that I'm fixing to use for the building. And so for the Adobe mixture, you want to go ahead and use kind of a grayish purple look. And I'm using the Leo brush and just making kind of rough strokes. And you probably want to get it a little bit darker, a little bit grayer. You can throw in some burnt umber and mix the oxazine purple with white, and this will give you a pretty good adobe color mixture. Adobe is made out of a clay type mud, and the way they make these buildings is they make adobe bricks and bake them, and then they will cover over the bricks with this adobe plaster, and it's just kind of a clayish mud mixture. And so they'll plaster it on the front and over the bricks all along the sides, and just make sure that all the adobe bricks are covered up. So that's kind of the way you kind of want to build your painting. Make it look like it's been plastered on. So that's why I'm using these rough strokes, and I'm using a little bit darker colors for the edges, and it doesn't have to be all the same color, because this adobe mud that they use has different colors, kind of, because it's a clay mixture, so it's not going to be uniform. And then you want to go ahead and on the right side make it darker, and then when you add your longer building on the side, make it a little bit darker. It's going to be in a little bit more shadow, so you want to add more burnt umber to your mixture here. And again, it's still using this adobe clay plaster mixture, so you want rough strokes here. And just kind of make it look like it's been plastered on by hand, because that's the way they used to make these old missions. And then go ahead and put a little bit of some dark in the bell tower to make it look like you can see the thickness of the adobe wall there. And we'll just end right here on this part. So this is the end of part 3 of our Midnight Mission series. And in our next part, we're going to be working on the foreground and adding the old well and some of the detail to the ground a little bit. So thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you for all your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.